Imagine an empire at the absolute height of its power. They're sitting on unfathomable wealth, total market dominance, and yet they are peering over the edge of a sheer cliff. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking one of the most fascinating, high-stakes corporate survival stories of our time. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, and the massive strategic dilemma they're facing right now. It is the ultimate tightrope walk. They have to balance their extraordinary massive current profits against highly uncertain, incredibly expensive bets on the future. And let me tell you, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher, and that drop, it couldn't be steeper. So it really begs the question, how exactly does a tech giant survive its own success? It sounds kind of strange to frame it that way, right? But seriously, how does an empire like Alphabet cheat history? How do they avoid becoming a victim of their own dominance? If you look at the tech industry, the graveyard is absolutely full of companies that were totally untouchable one decade and just entirely forgotten the next. The speed at which these titans fall from grace is breathtaking. Literally, 1 minute, you're defining a generation, and the next, well, you're just a cautionary tale in a business textbook. Consider this reality for a second. Companies often fail not because they lack resources, but because they become way too dependent on existing success. And that right there is the core tension of our story today. The very thing making a company unimaginably rich right now can act as a blinding light. It entirely hides the technological threats of tomorrow. It creates this false sense of invincibility right before the ground gives way. Let's dive into Section 1, the Golden Profit Engine. Okay, so to really grasp this, we need to understand the absolute treasure trove that makes Alphabet's entire empire possible. And it is staggering when you look at the sheer scale of the thing. Google search absolutely dominates how billions of us discover information online every single day. Then you've got YouTube, right? Dominating digital video and capturing millions of hours of human attention. Android powers mobile ecosystems across the entire globe, literally sitting in the pockets of half the planet. And tying all of this together is an advertising model that continuously turns all of that attention into an unfathomable river of revenue. These interconnected platforms create what is arguably one of the most profitable digital business models ever built in human history. But here's the truly fascinating part. This core business isn't just an operational success. It is strategically essential. Why? Because its extraordinary cash flow is exactly what funds all of Alphabet's wild, futuristic ambitions. Without this massive advertising foundation pumping billions into the bank, exploring the distant future would be, well, financially impossible. The empire's vanguard is entirely reliant on the supply lines of today's clicks. Now, what's really interesting is this razor-sharp contrast at the heart of Alphabet's strategy. On one side, you have the core business. It's highly profitable, it's proven, it's incredibly safe, and it's pumping out vast amounts of cash right now, today. On the exact opposite side, you have what Alphabet literally calls its other bets. These are massively uncertain, insanely expensive, highly risky projects that represent tomorrow's potential. And here's the rub. Every single dollar put into these experimental other bets is a dollar taken away from the proven safety of the core. Moving on to Section 2, the ghost of tech past. So you might be wondering, why take these massive risks at all? Well, it's because of a terrifying business reality known as the innovator's dilemma. It happens when the products generating your massive profits today actually discourage you from investing in the very technologies that will threaten your business model tomorrow. It kind of operates like a universal law of business physics. Dominant firms naturally develop a paralyzing fear of complacency. They know deep down that protecting the status quo, just wrapping their arms around today's profits and refusing to change, is exactly what makes them vulnerable to the next big leap forward. And history proves exactly how fast these paradigm shifts happen, and just how brutal they are for those who don't adapt. Look at this timeline. Search rapidly disrupted older internet models before the 2000s, leaving those early digital giants completely in the dust. Then, mobile computing entirely disrupted the desktop era of the 2000s. And now, here we are in the 2020s, and AI is ruthlessly disrupting the mobile and traditional digital interaction eras. Failing to disrupt yourself as these eras violently shift, that leads to a rapid, irreversible slide straight into irrelevance. Which brings us to Section 3, betting on moonshots. To buy their way out of this historical trap, Alphabet knows they have to act aggressively. They are pouring billions with a B into autonomous vehicles through Waymo, highly advanced artificial intelligence systems, mind-bending quantum computing, futuristic health technology, and massive cloud computing infrastructure. These aren't just little corporate side projects, folks. These are massive experimental undertakings that sound like absolute science fiction, yet Alphabet is trying to force them into tangible reality. Some of them might take decades to commercialize. And honestly, some of them might never succeed at all. But here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. These staggering bets aren't just for financial growth. They are deeply, deeply defensive. They create strategic optionality. Think about it. If self-driving cars completely reshape global transportation, Alphabet wants Waymo to already be sitting in the driver's seat. If quantum computing completely takes over how we process data, they want to ensure they are positioned to lead that revolution. This is innovation serving as a literal billion-dollar shield against irrelevance. Now for Section 4, the AI accelerant. Right now, the stakes are being raised higher and faster than ever before, because AI is no longer a distant moonshot bet. It is an immediate, accelerating reality. And this creates the ultimate strategic paradox for them. Let's break this down. Step 1. Alphabet's massive core ad profits are actively funding their massive AI research. Okay, makes sense. Step 2. That advanced AI requires enormous, incredibly costly computing power to develop. Still following. Step 3. As this AI gets better, it fundamentally changes how users naturally search for information. And step 4, well, because search behavior completely changes, Google's traditional search advertising model, the very golden engine funding everything, becomes directly threatened. Alphabet basically has to actively participate in its own disruption, even if it completely cannibalizes their entire golden profit engine. No pressure, right? Finally, let's look at Section 5, balancing innovation and discipline. How on earth do you even begin to manage a paradox like that? Alphabet's leadership is up against immense, almost suffocating pressures, funding so many uncertain futures all at once. First off, you've got intense financial pressure. I mean, they are spending billions of dollars with no immediate return in sight. Then, investor concern. Shareholders are fiercely demanding disciplined spending and, actual immediate returns. Add to that strategic distraction, with leadership's focus fragmented across a dozen entirely distinct industries. Next up is organizational complexity, which can cause total operational chaos between the futuristic research lab and the quarterly driven sales floor. And finally, sheer uncertainty. Predicting the future is fundamentally impossible, and even the most revolutionary tech can just simply fail to find a market. There's a universal truth in business that we have to remember here. Every single strategic investment involves a massive opportunity cost. Even for a giant with as much unimaginable cash as Alphabet, resources are fundamentally finite. If you invest too aggressively in wild, futuristic ideas, you risk widespread inefficiency and staggering waste. But if you invest too cautiously, desperately protecting only today's profits, you basically guarantee a slow, painful death by irrelevance. So leadership has to constantly, day in and day out, ask these incredibly difficult questions to navigate this balancing act. They have to ask, does this project actually align with where we want to be positioned in the future? Is this technology commercially realistic, or is it just a deeply expensive science experiment? Does putting money here actually strengthen our long-term ecosystem advantage, or does it just aggressively consume our finite resources without offering any real future value? Deciding which of these potential futures actually deserve their billions is a ruthless daily battle. Because at the end of the day, the most successful tech companies aren't just the ones with the best products right now. They are the ones willing to fund tomorrow's uncertainty before anyone else fully sees its value. The future rarely belongs to the companies that only protect today's success. It belongs to those bold enough to cannibalize their own empire to build the next one. So, we've seen the golden profit engine, we've walked through the history of tech graveyards, we've looked at the massive science fiction moonshots, and that terrifying accelerant of artificial intelligence. And after all of that, the ultimate question remains, will Alphabet successfully disrupt itself before someone else does? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it sparked your curiosity about the incredible, high-stakes strategies shaping our digital world.